for coming out on this rainy, cold day. I'm Joy Nagel, the Humanities Program Coordinator. And you know, we always do a quick little commercial for the Durham Library Foundation. We're in the middle of a capital campaign. We're over halfway there, raising $1.5 million so that we can have programs like this and the other humanities programs. If you don't get our brochure, please join the Humanities Society. It's the way you get quarterly brochures of all of our programs. Today's a little unusual. Why don't you all go have dinner at one of the fine restaurants downtown? And we have a program tonight at 7. It's freedom. We're showing excerpts from the PBS movie Freedom Riders. And then we're also going to have a real freedom rider here, and we're going to have a discussion about with the new 21st Century Freedom Riders, which is a group of young people that will be traveling from Durham to Nashville, stopping at Highlander Center. And we think that's going to be a really interesting program. And then tomorrow, we're going to be celebrating, well, we'll be celebrating with music. We're having the Time Klezmer Band here. That's going to be a really fun program. We hope that everybody doesn't dance on top of the chairs because they might break, but we hear they're a very good dance band. I was really happy this morning when I opened up the Durham Morning Herald, and there was an article about our speaker in the business section, and it mentioned the library program. I said, we've never had our programs listened in the business section. So that's a first. And Carol just won the Goodman Award, one of the Goodman Leadership Awards, which is a wonderful honor. So let me tell you a little bit about the other thing. And on the front page, I believe it taught that Shikori Hills has bought its property where they have this wonderful cultural and music center. And Carol was very involved, and Slow Money was very involved in that too. So I thought that was pretty amazing that you were in the paper twice. So she is Carol Peppe Hewitt is a small business owner, social entrepreneur, and lifelong activist. She's co-founder of Slow Money North Carolina, which works to finance North Carolina's sustainable food and farming economy by connecting individuals committing to building local food systems with entrepreneurs who have compelling needs for capital. She grew up in Northwest Connecticut, where she saw farms just disappear one by one, and she's working to make sure that doesn't happen here in the Piedmont, well, in all of North Carolina. And I told you she's been involved in Shikori Hills for years and years, one of the founders for that. So welcome with me, Carol Peppe Hewitt.
Thank you. All right, you all hearing me just fine?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I want to repeat what she said. We're coming out on this cold and dreary day, but it is certainly nice in here. And after I get a chance to share a little bit about the Slow Money story and the book, I have a couple of people here as well that have been involved in Slow Money that can answer questions and join me. And then we are going to get a chance to taste some local food samples. So some of the lenders, the borrowers have given us some things for you to taste. So if you had told me 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago, that I was going to hear about a concept and I was going to find it so compelling that I dove in and became a participant, well, that wouldn't have surprised me. That's the story of my life. I fall in love with people and things and ideas and movements and engage with them. But if you told me that it was going to take over my life, well, maybe that wouldn't have surprised me either. I've done that with a few things. But that I was going to write a book about it and launch out onto a national book tour, then I would have stopped you and said, okay, now you've gone too far. I'm certainly not going to do anything of the sort. I've never written a book before. But what happened over the next few years was that as I did get involved with Slow Money and started something I call Slow Money North Carolina, just to keep it separate from Slow Money Northern California, Slow Money Georgia, and wherever else Slow Money is becoming active, and I'll say in a minute about what exactly that is. I call it Slow Money North Carolina to define the sort of territory that I claim. Okay, I'll do North Carolina. Y'all do somewhere else. And a lot of our work has been here in the Triangle area in particular, but some other places as well. So at any rate, we, had you told me I was going to write a book about it, I would have said that's silly. But over the time, after a little while, we, hey Dave, we had so many stories that they just needed to be told. And these were stories that other people weren't going to write about themselves. once in a while people will journal, but not everybody writes their memoir or is keeping keeping their story, putting their story out there. So I ended up writing them for other people. So let me back up and say there's kind of three concepts, profound things that I have learned, many things, but I'm just going to pick three today to cover that I have discovered in doing this work. One is I call Because We Can. The other one, it really matters to people. And the third one is, one person can make a difference. I don't have it with me, but I've got a wonderful new button that I've got pinned to my purse. And it says, I've got to go get it now, but it's something like, one person can't really make a difference. And it's crossed out the can't. And it says one person can really make a difference. And that's absolutely true. It has happened over and over. So we can make a big difference. So let me back up and do a little bit of definitions for you. What is a food shed? Financing our food shed. Well, a food shed is basically just like a watershed. The water that pours into a river is the watershed of that river. And the food shed is the area that would feed us if we let it. So wouldn't it be nice to go to the grocery store and pretty much find the large percentage of the food items there being grown or produced right in our local food shed? So wouldn't that be exciting? Now you can go to the farmer's market and get a fair amount, but that's, we've got that. So that is our food shed. Our food shed, maybe it's 50 miles, maybe it's 100 miles, maybe it's 200 miles, but Joanne even grew a lemon. There's a local lemon in our water today. And I know some people that have are growing citrus in Chatham, doing an amazing job. And we can grow persimmons, and we can grow kiwis, and we could grow a lot of things that we would use instead of buying bananas from faraway places. So that's our food shed. And then what is slow money? Well, I sometimes will start a talk. This is more of a book reading today, but often I get asked to talk in conferences and on panels. And I'm speaking to a large number of farmers and people that are either potential lenders or potential borrowers in this idea of slow money. And I'll say, today we're going to talk about money. Your money. And it's like, really? Where's the door? Nobody really wants to talk about their money. We've been told not to talk about our money. But if we don't take the veil of secrecy off of money, we will continue to live in a broken economy. It's kept in place by silence, by secrecy, by fear, by threat that you're going to lose it all. And when you start talking to people about their retirement and income, and maybe you should move it over here where it matches your morals and your values. Well, don't talk about my retirement income. Okay, that's my money, and I want to make as much as I can because if I lose it, and all of this fear and kind of stuff comes up about how important it is that we have that security with our savings and our retirement. Well, I actually look at the future a little differently. I would rather loan my money to Chatham Marketplace, which is my food co-op in Pittsburgh. You've got, Weaver Street, and you're about to get Durham a market here. Yeah, Central Market. Very exciting. I would much rather put some of my energy and effort and finances into that because every single day of the week of the year, I pretty much make my way to Chatham Marketplace. And it gives me so much pleasure. It makes such a difference in my life that little place is there. And in fact, it has Wi-Fi. And I'll often park myself with my laptop on the porch and spend the afternoon there. And I get so much work done. I don't have to call anybody. They walk by at some point in the afternoon. It's just a wonderful little hub. So what's important in terms of investments and money and security is it's not about the money. It's about our communities. It's about our relationships. It's about our natural capital. It's about keeping our planet as safe as we can from loss of topsoil. But for 6 inches of topsoil, we don't exist as a species, nor do many of the other ones. So let me stop and give you a definition of slow money. Woody Tash came up with this idea. He was involved in the venture capital world. He went over to the slow food gathering in Italy and was very inspired by the idea of food, slow food. And I say that on his flight back, he had this epiphany where he said, wait, what if we take food and the idea of investments in money, slow food and we slow it, money down and we call it slow money. And he wrote a book about it called Inquiries into the Nature of Slow Money back in 2008. It was published by Chelsea Green. And started traipsing around the country on a walkabout, talking about this idea and challenging people to take 1% of their portfolio, whatever that would be, and invest it locally in their local food shed. Loan it to a farmer. Help Big Spoon roasters get going to make amazing nut butters out of locally grown nuts and local honey and whatever else he puts in there. But pretty much it. So I heard him speak back in 2010, in May of 2010. Woody Tash came to Pittsburgh and spoke to a number of people that are involved in the sort of food and farming movement, and I thought it sounded like a really good idea. And luckily there was a couple of us in the audience, Lyle Estel, who wrote the book Small as Possible, and he talks about financing ourselves, and he talks about fueling ourselves. He runs the community scale biodiesel plant in Pittsburgh, Piedmont Biofuels. I run around with my TDI, my VW diesel. I have 3 of them, and we run around on 100% B100, out of used cooking oil and spun into biofuel down in Pittsburgh. So he has a chapter on fueling ourselves. He has a chapter on feeding ourselves, farmers and CSAs and things. And then he has a chapter on financing ourselves. And he says, then this was back a while ago when he wrote this book, I think it's 2006. And he says, that's the area where we get the lowest marks. We haven't really figured out how to finance ourselves. We use banks for that. We have very stringent laws that don't allow us to help one another very easily in our communities. So it's not that easy to walk into a local business and say, hey, do you need any help? How you doing? I see you've expanded. Would you like some help with that? You're one of my favorite businesses. Well, that you can ask them, but if they had asked you, that causes trouble with security laws. So it's a whole lot easier, actually, to invest in faraway corporations through Wall Street and through investment portfolios than it is to help our local community. And the only reason that Durham Central Market can do what it's about to do, which is get 2,000 from one person to 2,000 from another and 2,000 from another, is because they're going to be a co-op. You try to do that in any other way, and the security laws will say, oh, no, you can't do that. You can't have all those unaccredited lenders in one place. So fast money is pretty easy to understand. As much money changes hands in any given day on Wall Street than exists in the entire world. Every single day. Now that's fast money. It's moving faster, actually, than anybody can even count. So slow money is when you reach into your wallet and you slowly pull out $1 or 2 or 3 and you buy a cup of coffee. Or when you look into your savings or you look into your money market funds or wherever you have a little bit of extra cash and you say, how about I take $2,000 and I help Big Spoon Roasters? Or how about that new deck over on 9th Street Bakery? That was put there by 4 or 5 different slow money lenders that each lent Frank Farrell, who owned 9th Street at the time. Frank is here. I think one person did 3 and somebody did 4. And I talk about that story in my book because I use that as an example of how not to do a slow money loan. We were so excited back then that we just said to anybody, whatever you want to do is fine. So one person was $3,500, and one other was $4,000, and one was $45,000, and God bless the bookkeeper that's keeping track of all those payments. It would have been a whole lot easier if we'd done everybody at the same amount. But it's not that big of a deal. It's just a bookkeeping thing. So what we do with slow money here in North Carolina, what I have been pioneering since I heard this idea back in 2010, is the idea that we could make direct peer-to-peer loans between family and friends. That's completely legal. I can loan my niece as much money as I want, and I can charge her 2% or 3%. I can charge her 0% if I want to. I can loan it to my friend. So what we do with slow money is we help people become friends. And once they have made that relationship, I'm a bit of a matchmaker. Once I introduce people to each other and they come to a slow money gathering and they meet and they hear about the idea that a farmer has, a project that a farmer is trying to do, or a project like Big Spoon Roasters or urban, what's it called? Wait. There's an urban farm in town. An urban farm in town, that's the name that's going on. No, it's a different one. But anyway, I'll think of Homegrown City Farm. Thank you. Is Collier Reeves and Mariah Smith have a small urban farm here in town. And that was a really exciting loan because the young man that made the loan to them was under 30 years old. Several of the lenders have been young adults, have been people in their 20s. And so was the couple that received the loan. So that was a really exciting one. It was a whole new generation supporting one another and making things happen. So I told you there are three ideas that I want to go back to, three compelling things that I learned. One is we can do this. We have the money. There's money out there. People have a little money. And if you have money and you want to do something with it that matters, it's not that much fun to go to the mall. I mean, unless you're a really, great shopper, and I'm looking, you don't look like a high shopper. I'm telling you, you look like you've been wearing those clothes for a few years. But unless you're an avid shopper, chances are, now 50% of the people in the United States don't have any savings at all. Okay, so we're not talking about everybody, but we're talking about some people. For those of us that have a little bit of income lying around, we can carve off some of it and do something good with it. So what's exciting is we can. Why do people make these loans? And I have a whole chapter because I went back and asked the lenders. I have about 75 lenders now, and I think when I did the book, when I stopped and wrote the book, we had about 45. And I went back and I asked them, why did you do these loans? And I asked them their class background. Are you a high net worth individual? Are you raised working class? Are you middle class? And they know. And would you like me to put any quotes in the book? Do you have anything you'd like to share, anonymously or not? Many of them shared with their name, their story. And the large majority were raised either working class or middle class, and were still middle class. So very few of them are what you would consider high net worth individuals. These are just ordinary people that care. And Seth, for example, the fellow that did the loan, works at Duke, and he has his first kind of real income. And they want to, offer him some retirement income retirement program. And he says, I want to do what I want with my money. I want to do what matters in my community. And he made that loan to Collier and Mariah and helped them get started. So a couple $1,000 was either the loan form got started or didn't. It's amazing when you talk about small businesses, how little, in a way, micro-lending in this country is $5,000. Micro-lending in a third world country, fine, it might be 25. But here it's, but for $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000, small businesses can either get started or expand, and it makes all the difference. The other second concept that I found was, and maybe Frank can speak to this, and David Heeks is now here, of Heeks Farm, who didn't quite make it into the book. He had just gotten his loan, and so he managed to get a picture. His picture got in the book, but not his story. And I'm going to tell his story quickly, and then I'll read a little bit, and then I'll let you ask me questions. But what I often hear is people just can't get over the borrowers that someone was willing to loan them the money, that was willing to take a risk. They might not have known them first, but they came and they met with them, and they got to know them, and they met their kids, and they saw their farm, and maybe they didn't even ask for a business plan. Or maybe they did. But in the end, they said, we'll help you. And because of that, these loans perform extremely well. They rarely default. Occasionally, it just either was a bad business idea, and we were in too much of a hurry. In 2011, when we first got started, I've started to admit that we were just about throwing money at people. Would you like a loan? Please take a loan. We wanted to learn how to do this. And so, I was going out to farmers markets with my little piece of paper, my little flyer, and saying, do you know anybody who wants a loan? Because I know if you want to get good at something, you have to do it over and over and over. And those of us making the loans were very clear this had to be money we could afford to lose. And I don't know if you remember, but back then, the stock market was losing my money just fine. It wasn't having any trouble, and it wasn't asking my permission. So at least this way, I knew where I knew where it had gone. So we have had a couple of one farmer, Reliable Cheese. For those of you in Durham know, Patrick got a wonderful business started, and it just was too much, and he ended up going into bankruptcy. He had a couple of small money loans. He'd already paid a fair amount of it back, but there was a little bit of debt left there. Knowing Patrick, I suspect someday I was one of his lenders, I'll get a check. I hope it's like in about a decade, and I could really use it. But anyway, so we have had some problems, but really none in 2012, none in 2013. We're getting much better at understanding who to loan money to and how to help them get loan ready, how to give them more technical assistance. But I hear this over and over. My second concept is, it means so much to me that people would do this for us. It just matters. It matters. We can do this as lenders, and it matters to the people that there's a chance out there. There's a lot of young people want to go into farming, and they're going to need help. They're going to need capital. And sometimes it's pure a piece of equipment. And that's all it is. And then the other one is, we can do this over and over. This one person can make a difference. Okay, fine. Someone said to me recently, how come in North Carolina there have been over 100 loans, over $1 million, to 48 different farm and food businesses? How come that hasn't happened anywhere else in the United States? And I had to say, that would be because of me. I couldn't, there really is no other answer. If you decide to do something, and I know you people are all change the world types, or you wouldn't have come today. And at some point in your life, you have you've gotten a hold of something like a dog with a bone, and you have hung on until you saw results. And that's kind of what I did. I've hung on until I've seen results. And now it's particularly fun to come to Durham. So we have a lot of projects that we've funded in Durham. Cocoa Cinnamon got loans to open their new shop. Beautiful, beautiful little coffee shop, if you haven't found it yet, across from Mad Bites Dog Theater. On Brent Farm. So I want to tell you quickly about David's story, and then I'll read a little bit from the book. When David approached me, David Heeks wanted a precision cedar. I wasn't sure what that was, but it sounded very good to me. He wanted to go into winter vegetables, and he can speak more about this. And there's lots of vegetables, lots of annuals and produce you can find in the summer at the farmers markets, but what about now? What about this time of year? There's still kale, there's still squashes, there's still things that you could grow. And if someone would really put attention to that, that sounded like a really good business idea. And a couple approached me that wanted to do a loan. They were looking for someone to help. They heard me speak, or they saw my website. And she was an architect, and he is an engineer. I visited them in their home. Everything is in exactly the right place. It's very tasteful. It's very lovely. And the first person I knew one farmer that needed money, and he is a wonderful character. He gets everything on free cycle. His chicken coop is hysterical. I mean, there's no two boards that match. The whole place is higgledy-piggledy, but he has cobbled together an irrigation system. He's got cisterns getting caught. And they went out and looked at his farm, and they came with, oh, no, I don't think we can do that. Okay, fine. I said, well, we'll let you know if something else comes up. And a few weeks later, David puts in an application. I can't really call it an application, a borrower information form, we call this, for a precision cedar. And I thought, oh, a precision cedar. That sounds like a match. I hadn't actually been out to David's farm, but I met David, and I knew that he was very organized and a graduate of Breeze Farm, Incubator Farm. And so I sent them out, and they called me the next day. Oh, they were all over that. Here was this very clean-cut, capable, intelligent, well-spoken young couple, and they were all about loaning them money. And so, I love that story, because it really is about the relationship. And David can speak to this. He and I don't see each other hardly near enough. He's way up in Cedar Grove area. But whether or not you've had much contact with your lenders, other than the fact that you send them a check. But one story I want to share with you from the book, and it's about another young farmer named Tucker Worthington, and he when he was a young man in high school, wanted cows. His dad was a farmer. They had a dairy. His dad also had a real job working for a food store. This is all in the book. You can read more about it. But anyway, when he was 15 years old, he says, on my 15th birthday, my dad took me to the local banker and said, my son wants to milk cows, and he needs to borrow $20,000 to buy a herd. He co-signed the loan for me, and we walked out of there that afternoon and went about 80 miles away with trucks and trailers and bought a load of cows. And I started milking cows. He's telling me this story sitting on the deck at the Chatham Marketplace, and his lenders were there, the couple that was meeting him to get to know him better and decide whether or not they could build a friendship and a relationship and would feel good about making this young man a loan. So I said, most kids start with a paper route. And everyone laughed. Chuckled Tucker. Well, I started with a herd of cows. And it wasn't Dad's lawn. It was on me. If I was at a cow sale and I'd call home and I'd say, I think there's a cow I'd like to buy here, he'd remind me, you know, you've got a grain bill this month, and milk's down $1. You might want to think about buying that cow. I'm not going to bail you out. 9 times out of 10, he would be right. When the end of the month rolled around and there was only a couple $100 left, a $2,000 cow wasn't going to fit in that program at that time. So he was 15. About a year later, his dad died suddenly. And Tucker tried to hold it together and keep the farm going. He learned to fit cows. He would show cows for other people, and, make the hair stand up just right and the tail look just perfectly. And he was a professional fitter. He got his auctioneering license. He did all kinds of things. He's a delightful person. If you ever get down to Pittsburgh, to the farmers markets, go find Tucker and Lily Den Farm. He's a delightful person. But his dad died, and he made do as best he could, and he ended up getting married, and he was in upstate New York, and it's a very funny story in here. He said he was never going to go south, even though his wife had some family down here. And then one day he goes out to the barn, and it's frozen over in the night, and the door is frozen closed. He had to break a window, get in, hose down the floor, try to thaw things out, get the doors open. It took him 4 hours to feed the cows. And he went into the house, and he said to Mackenzie, his wife, get on the computer and find us a farm where it never gets below 30 for more than 5 days a year. And they did eventually find a farm down in Lower Chatham County. So what he needed was a skid steer. And I thought that was some kind of fancy cow, but it turns out it's not. It's a digger of some sort. It's a piece of equipment. And he called me all of a sudden one day, and he said, I found one, it's $5,000. It's in really good shape, but I have to go buy it like tomorrow. And luckily, I had this couple waiting in the wings, and we sat on the Chatham Marketplace for about 2 hours that day. And they did end up making him the loan. And he jumped in the car and took off. And I want to tell you read the ending of this, and then I want to share what I told you this story. I couldn't help but think, so as we got up to leave, his lender asked Tucker for a favor. He's a great fan of beef tongue. I've had tongue once, and I don't want to have it again. Anyway, could he put in an order for the next tongue that Tucker had for sale? Tucker was happy to oblige, and it gave the two a good excuse to see each other again soon. I couldn't help but think how much Tucker's dad would have enjoyed those hours, spent swapping stories on the porch that afternoon. I like to think he was listening in, full of pride and admiration. I ran into Tucker later that afternoon. He was heading out to pick up his new skid steer, and he could hardly wait to climb into his truck. He had the face of an excited, brave 15-year-old, heading off with trailers and trucks to get his first herd of cows. So that's the wonderful story, and I want to say that, just take a moment and let you know that the lenders were Giles Blunden and his wife Ginger Blakely, and we've just recently lost Ginger to cancer this week. So she is, I talk about her in the story, in the book, she was the farmer in the crowd. She was raised on a family farm. And it gave her such a great deal of pleasure to do this at this stage of her life. And she was already wearing a scarf, and she was already struggling with cancer when she met Tucker a year or so ago. So thank you, Ginger. And I guess, lots of happy and bittersweet stories along the way. So I just want to close by thanking you again and saying that the way this works is we do have a website, and people go on there, they hear me talk, or they hear from someone else, or they meet someone, or they hear me on the radio, and they'll go to the Slow Money website at slowmoneync. You put .org or .com, but if you don't put the NC in there, you're going to get to the national site, and you still have to find the drop-down menu. You can still find me, but Slow Money NC is me, and info at Slow Money gets to me, Carol at Slow Money NC gets to me. The emails have to be ended in org, but the website is com or org, so I'm not hard to find. Anything you email into that website comes to me. So there is a place for lenders to read about lending, and there's a place for borrowers to read about borrowing, and you can read about all the loans we've done. There's a paragraph and a photograph of every loan we've done to date. I think maybe there's one more we just did in Wilmington. I haven't gotten up on the site yet. So I welcome you to join us in the Slow Money movement. There are many places where you can jump in. One is to eat locally every chance you get. Another is to just every dollar you spend, try to shop locally. I was quite a bit of traffic coming up here because this is I guess people are out shopping. So if you're going to go out shopping, do it locally if you possibly can. And if we are a nonprofit, Slow Money is a nonprofit. I don't take any fees for the work we do. I just beg for money. And we're very cheap. I say if my laptop is open, we're open. If my laptop is closed, we're closed. We're a very tiny little nonprofit, but it does make a difference. And actually, right now, we have a $5,000 match. If we can raise $5,000, a donor is going to give us $5,000. And I should tell you that and I need to do that. We'll get a sign-up sheet going. I guess you did that when you came in. If you'd like to get my Slow Money newsletters, which we send out very infrequently, because I don't have time to do them very often, but as often as I can, we've got something going on right now that every $25 donation, so if it's four, you get 4 raffle tickets, and we're going to pull them on December 31st, and someone's going to win a dinner at Oak Leaf Restaurant in Pittsburgh, which you haven't been. It's an amazing new farm-to-table restaurant in Chatham Mill. So we've got a little fundraiser going on as well. And Monday night, we will be meeting at the tea house, the new tea house is being built at Pickett's Mountain in Chapel Hill. So if you know anybody that wants to hear about Slow Money that missed today's activity or gathering, or they want to propose an idea that they want to have an audience listen to, Monday night we're going to have a Slow Money gathering is what we call it. We sit around, talk about Slow Money, eat some local food, have a good time, and we'll be doing one of those on Monday night as well. So thank you for coming, and I'm happy to take questions. And Frank, come on up, and David, come on up. He would like you to just stand with me because we're taking a video. And if you want,
I'll put a list over by the book because the sign-in sheet is for the Humanities Society.
Okay, great.
But I'll put a sheet there for anybody.
That'd be great. We can even pass something around if we want to. Mm-hmm. So Frank Farrell, welcome, is the owner of 9th Street Bakery, except not anymore, but he was. Just retired.
Yay.
And Frank was 9th Street Bakery, as you all know, is an institution. And I just swung by. We're going to break in a minute and let you snack, and picked up some refreshments. And really, that deck is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's getting sort of settled in. It looks like it's been there forever now.
But I was comparing our first loan with our last loan, which was through Carol and Slow Money. Well, we opened in 1981 on 9th Street, and our first loan was through, I guess it was a local bank back then, NCNB, which became Nations Bank, which became another bank, which became Nations Bank and another bank. And so the difference to me is just incredible. I mean, through Carol, it was like one page, very simple. You got to work with a lovely, charming, fun person, and we got the loan for 4%, In 1981, you had to fill out all the forms, all the fine print, but I don't know if you guys remember the interest rates in 1981, but it was for 21%. So we survived, and that's quite a bit of difference between, a big big institutional bank and slow money. Not to mention all the other benefits, keeping your money local, etc. So.
Yeah, when my husband Mark Hewitt and I, who's a potter, and I invite you to our kiln opening, which is today and tomorrow down in Pittsburgh. I got some cards on the back. When we first started, moved here 31 years ago, his brother, thank goodness, was able to loan us 10,000 pounds, which is $15,000. And I think it was 13%, is it 13 or 16, I forget now. But we paid him $100 a month forever. But that's okay. You know, he was very formal about it. We had a proper note, and that was my first kind of exposure to this idea that you can do this. Actually, one of the loans that we've done is our parents. Parents are loaning to one of their children, but I helped, orchestrate the loan because again they wanted something formal and they didn't really know how to do it. I said, "Oh, it's easy. Here, we can do this." So sometimes it's just having that person in there in between two friends that kind of formalizes things. Several of the people that loan you money are people you knew personally before so money. And they called and said, "How do I do that? I want to help Frank. How do I help him?" I said, "Perfect, we can make this happen." So David, you're the precision cedar guy. Maybe you could say just a little bit more about what's going on at your farm and where it is.
Yeah, thanks. Right, so I'm David Heeks, and we sell at the Durham Farmers Market during the winter, and we're also at Carborough. The farm is located, we have two sites. We're leasing some land in Rougemont, and then we bought a farm last fall in Bahama, off of Bahama Road. And we actually live in Durham. I'm a commuting farmer, so I live off of Lakewood Avenue here, so Durham is my home. Anyway, I approached Carol, I guess it was 2 years ago. Now I wanted we're expanding. I started on a 1/4 acre at the Breeze Incubator Farm in '09, I think. And anyway, I'm on 5 acres now, or I'm growing on 5 acres. I have 5 acres under production. So it's been quite an expansion. I've been expanding every year, and we're going to do it again next year. So I approached Carol because we wanted to expand, but I don't have enough. Well, when you expand, you have to maybe you don't have to, but I wanted to mechanize it a little bit. So we got a precision seeder. I used to drag a hoe down every row, and our rows are 270 feet long. And if you do carrots, that's 3 little rows. And we did that on about 1.5 acres, and then I realized, if I had a precision seeder, I could do this really fast. So that's what we did. We approached Carol, and she helped us find a match. We actually got a precision seeder. We got an additional mobile trailer. It's an enclosed cargo trailer that we converted into a cooler. And then we got the CoolBot unit and the air conditioner, which brings the room down to temperatures appropriate to store vegetables. So, and I can tell Carol this, I probably can't tell you, but we are going to be expanding again, and in order to mechanize, one of the things we're looking at doing is laying down some plastic mulch, we actually have never grown on plastic. Everything's on dirt. However, a lot of farms do use it, and it saves a lot on weeding costs, and we have tons of hand labor spent weeding. So if I could do a couple of plantings like kale or broccoli or Brussels sprouts on the black plastic, we could save ourselves some labor. So I might be approaching it with another application for an additional
borrow information.
A borrow information form, and maybe I can meet a new friend, or we can approach our current lenders. But I think it's about $1,500 for that, and we just really, the first time when I walked into Wells Fargo, maybe it was Wachovia back then, to start our business, we opened up an account. I was like, yeah, I'd really like a credit card, and they declined me. I was declined for a credit card. So we had some savings. We started the farm with our savings, and every year, especially for those first couple of years, all that money went right back, just pumped it back into the farm. Now I get credit card applications all the time from Wells Fargo, and I will not take one. You declined me a long time ago, so I'm not doing it anymore.
I love that.
And those interest rates are really high, as you know. So we would love to find more people. We would love to be able to finance our farm locally and feed all of y'all wonderful vegetables. So anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you. So, questions? Yeah.
You said you've brokered over $1 million
Mm-hmm.
since the beginning. How many years is that?
say that two of them are really big. One is $400,000. We did an LLC that we formed to refinance the Chatham marketplace. It had a $300,000 balloon payment coming due. We jumped ahead of that balloon payment. 16 people put in $25,000 each. We formed an LLC, and we bought the loan from a bank in Virginia. The loan was almost 9%. We brought it down to 5%. The payments, and you didn't hear me say any of this. Oh, too late. It's over. All right, well, because they say you don't be too specific about all this, but anyway. It brought their payments down by a third. So you can imagine, take your mortgage and have somebody just said, well, it's going to be a third less from now on. It was very helpful to their cash flow. And it made it much easier for them to stay afloat, and now they're actually doing quite well. There's a new manager down there, and the place is really doing better and better all the time. The other one, there was a large one for a couple $100,000 that was a family loan. And then, so if you take those out, all of the others average about $5,000 each. So often if someone needs $15,000, we'll find 3 people to do 5, or whatever. So we've funded TS Designs, the first organic cotton ever grown in North Carolina since before the Civil War, turned into T-shirts, turned into yarn, turned into cloth, made into T-shirts, and sold right here in North Carolina. It can be done. Apparel is one of the worst things. When you're trying to buy local, you just can't. I bet Eric Henry, who was the vice president of TS Designs, he often does this. He'll say to people, does anybody know where their shirt's made? And of course, until you have your neighbor look, no, most of us have no idea. And it'll be some country that you may not even have heard of, or not very often. So apparel is really tricky. So trying to get locally grown apparel in this, clothing is tough. We've now got really denim. We've got a few exceptions, but not many. So yeah, so they average. That's why there's 100 loans and 48 projects. A lot of them have 2. Some have. Your deck was what? 4 different people, I think. 4 or 5. 15 total, but it took several people to do that, and that's fun. It's fun. It spreads the risk, but it also means that there's 4 people that are going to go shop at Ninth Street Bakery more often, and it builds community. And so I always try to match people within the community if I possibly can. The idea is that you loan to Ninth Street, and then you can go there. You loan to David, and you can go find him at the farmer's market and support him. So. And we did just do this other one, which was in the newspaper, which is not so much slow money, but based on the concept of that LLC. We formed an LLC. We raised enough money for Shikori Hills Grassroots Festival, the Community Arts Center, to purchase that land. So what it says in the article was, which I think is really wonderful, there's going to be one thing missing when Shikori Hills opens its doors, or its tents, or its stages this spring, which is the worry that they're ever going to lose that site to a developer. So that's based on slow money, and I think that's the direction I find myself going in now. We can do a lot more community financing. We got started with food, but we can do green energy. We can do cultural arts. We can do more. Yeah.
Have you ever been approached by, or have you approached any of the towns or cities around here to be part of this?
She's asking, have I ever approached any of the towns or cities to be part of this? What's your thought?
Slow money. So connecting, because there you have a little bit bigger entities, but so that we can have a community bank somehow.
So she's asking about a community bank. The challenge is I can't do anything that resembles banking. It's much more complicated. So I don't touch the money. One of the first things I tell people when there's farmers and people in the room, you're looking for money, I don't have any money. Somebody doesn't actually have any money. What we have is a network. We have resources. We have each other. And if we can connect the dots, then we can make things happen. So we don't aggregate the funds. So it's a great idea, and some towns do have revolving loan funds. But anytime you get into those kinds of things, they have to spend so much time vetting them. Their expenses are so much higher than mine. And then you see the interest rates jumping up to 8 and 9, even though they're getting that money for free, just about, from the government. But still, they seem to need it. And the interest rate, probably on your loan, over the entire length of what was your loan, 6? over the entire length of the loan, was the interest rate, the entire interest might have been 240 or
Not enough.
yeah, tiny little bit of money, not even. And so, no bank, nobody can afford to pay a staff to do that. So you're only going to find that this kind of activity operating in a nonprofit and volunteer mode, So unless, and we get subsidized by donations. So that's how I've managed to do it. Now maybe there's some other ways, but that's how I've done it.
I'm jumping way ahead of the game here, but I love your model, and it sounds like you're doing it just for business and farm loans. Can you imagine building this model into something that could do the same thing for housing?
Well, I just have so much bandwidth and so much interest. It wouldn't be my interest. Somebody else might.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. I don't mean you.
I've actually started getting involved in solar projects. So we've actually loaned money to farmers to raise sheep under solar. But the thing about housing is that it does have collateral. When you buy a loan for a house, they hold the deed, and it's easier to get money if you have money. If you have something to show for it. So. That concerns me less than right now Alvin over in Old Fort desperately wants to buy an old used tractor. That's all he needs, $6,000. The bank will give him $60,000 happily, right? And put him way in debt for a brand new tractor. But he doesn't want a brand new tractor. He wants an old clunker that he's perfectly capable of fixing so that he can grow GMO-free grain to feed to the organic pasture-fed whatever, grain crop, meat crop. They'll buy as many tons of grain as he can grow. There's a huge demand for that. He just needs an old tractor. Well, he can't get a loan for an old tractor. That's going to probably be, I'm working on this one, 2 or 3 people that give him $2,000 or $3,000 each, and he can buy his old, whatever it is he's found. So that's what's so frustrating, is that what we can do as community members is we can help with this small stuff. It looks like it's not important, but it really adds up. I mean, with David, that story about somebody standing at the ocean and they're throwing
the
starfish back in, somebody said, well, what are you doing? That's not going to make any difference. Well, it matters to this one. But I was thinking about you. It's like, yeah, well, it mattered to us. But for Precision Seeder, you'd still be out there with a hoe. Still, today.
Can I say something about this question? So when we were looking for land, we really wanted to try to find a way for the community to own the land that we were farming, such that we could be confident that it would always be farmland. Because the biggest challenge for young farmers is access to land, because the prices are crazy and only going up. So we were playing around with trying to find a model that would allow the community to purchase our farm, but give us lifetime and really infinite security, such that our kids could inherit the right to farm the land. And we just couldn't find a model that would work. Unfortunately, North Carolina's laws prevent a nonprofit from being able to take advantage of the present use value tax program. This might be a little more complicated for the crowd today, but anyway, that allows the landowner to pay property taxes based on the farm's use, which is farming, is much lower than if it were a development potential. So because of the way the law is written, we were trying to work with Triangle Land Conservancy that they could solicit donations perhaps from the community and purchase the land, and then we could have a lifetime lease on the land, something like that. We played around with that. We thought, well, what if we got people to basically loan us money, and we would what would we have to set the interest rate at, such that we could afford to pay them. And so we tried to make a model work for land ownership, and I really wish we could make it work here in North Carolina, because they're doing it in other states, but it's that particular part of the law, the present use value tax program. So maybe one day we can fix that. But I'm sorry. But on the housing thing, the Durham Community Land Trust, this is a similar model. I mean, maybe we can't loan them money, but if the community, if the generous people can come together and purchase more homes and have lifetime, secure rents for people. Stuff like that.
There is another question in the back.
I was just trying to get the clarification you said about a farmer that wanted to, it sounded like he said that he wanted to grow GMO crops.
Free.
Or none.
Free. GMO free.
GMO free.
Oh, okay.
GMO free.
That's what I was wondering. All right.
So the one of the missions, one of the key central missions to Slow Money was Woody Tash's belief that soil fertility mattered. And that means that when I'm looking at screening businesses that show an interest in approaching people about slow money, I screen them for sustainability. We don't have good definitions for that, but for example, I had somebody call me and he wanted to make pizza in a cone. I thought that sounded like a really cool idea. I said, well, are you going to use any local cheeses or local tomatoes? Or nope, I'm going to get it all from Costco. Well, I'm not going to be able to find you a lender because the people that find me care about the mission of Slow Money. So, with Cocoa Cinnamon, it's a coffee shop. Well, there's not a lot of locally grown coffee, but they make a concerted effort to use local milk. And I can tell you, there's a lot of milk that goes through a coffee shop. I run the coffee barn at Shikori, and I go through something like 50 gallons of milk in 4 days. So, in fact, the local milk suppliers have trouble coming up with that much milk for that weekend. So, so it's a mixture. But yes, our goal is to. What about 9th Street? Tell me about local. What local ingredients are used in the 9th Street products?
Well, we started with Lindley Mills, which is a local mill down in Saxapaha. And when we first moved here from California, we couldn't believe there was a mill that was local enough, close enough to supply us with organic wheat. Wheat to make bread out of has been pretty difficult in North Carolina, but they've been experimenting with it, and now they're starting to grow bread flour made from North Carolina wheat in North Carolina. I think a lot of it comes from the Sand Hills area, and so we started making one of our breads, a sourdough bread from local wheat. And then we've used, for our milk, we've used, what's the dairy?
Mapleview?
Mapleview. We use Mapleview, and we could do a lot more locally, and organically, but you've got to kind of, watch the bottom line, and sometimes you just can't do everything that you want when you own a business. So,
one of the slow money loans out in Asheville is to Jennifer Lapidus, who has the North Carolina Organic Bread Flour Project. Another name as well. But anyway, she's grinding locally grown grains, and then the farmer can actually get his grain back. So if you grow rye, you can send it to her. She'll grow it, grind it into flour, and then the flour from that particular farm is then available. That's very rare. So what Lindley does is, so that their whole wheat flour pretty much always tastes the same, they blend it. Just like, Gallo red wine is always going to taste the same. They're going to try to blend a bunch of grapes to make it taste like it did, in the last jug. So,
well, the food scene in the Triangle in North Carolina, especially the Triangle, compared to 1981, has just evolved amazingly. It's amazing. I was up in Gettysburg visiting the battlefield a couple months ago, and to me, it was just striking the difference between that area of the country and Durham. I mean, Durham, Chapel Hill are really amazing, but there's a new bakery that's going to open in Raleigh. There are not a lot of bakeries in Raleigh. They don't have a bakery district like we do downtown Durham. And they're going to use 100% North Carolina wheat. They're going to contract with the grower, and they're going to grind it right there on the premises. It's going to be in Boylan Heights.
Is it bolted bread? Is that Sam?
I don't know what the name of it.
So there's one that's actually.
You've heard about it?
Well, I talked to him today. He's getting two slow money. They're getting two slow money loans. That's called bolted bread, B-O-U-L-T-E-D, and they're going to buy a stone grinder,
yeah,
and they're going to grind it themselves,
make flour,
and turn it into bread.
with North Carolina.
Yeah,
And we,
It's going to be amazing. The two young men are Sam Fitzpatrick and Fulton's last name is leading me, but they were up in Asheville working with All Souls Pizza. Anyway, there's another bakery up there that they trained with, and All Souls Pizza got also us a little money loan to get started. So SOULS. So if you ever are in Asheville, it's amazing. It's really good pizza. Really thin wood-fired pizza. So I'm getting hungry now. If anybody has another pressing question, I will take it. And then I'll tell you a little bit about what's over there for food. Anybody else that, no, you're just too hungry to, okay. Good. So what we have over there is 3 different types of big spoon roasters, nut butters, and they're astounding. I actually got a jar one time and took it home, pretty much ate the whole thing. I think it was an almond one, but there's nothing in it but the butter, but the nuts and the honey. And they're not inexpensive. You know, we're used to going and getting peanut butter that's $2 a jar or something, and I think these may be, I don't know, they're 7 or 8 or 12, depending on where you buy them, which seems like a lot, but I spend that on a bottle of wine and every bottle of thing, you know, in a night with my husband or a couple of friends. So that's supposed to last a little longer. And it becomes just something that is so amazing. That's the other thing about really good food is you don't need to eat as much of it. You know, you eat Skippy and there, you eat half the jar and just, you still like where's the flavor I'm looking for? So that is all flavor all the time. There's some faraway crackers in front of there. I just wanted to bring something little for you to use. And then there's a half chocolate, half white bread that's from 9th Street. What?
Chocolate babka. It's made with, excuse me, I got a little cold. Chocolate babka, it's challah and a chocolate syrup. It's kind of twirled into the dough. And then we've got some brownies from 9th Street Bakery and our pan forte that we do for Christmas.
Little nibbles. And the Krupnikos is a honey-flavored liqueur that Rim Vagelis makes, and you can actually, he couldn't be here today because he's doing a tour. His place is right here in Durham, and you can go over there and tour how he makes it. But he and his brothers had this recipe, family recipe for this honey-flavored liqueur. And their friends all said, this is amazing, you should start a business. And when Rim first approached me, I thought, oh my gosh, you know, I don't know. I mean, you know, liquor's a great thing to invest in because in good times people drink and in bad times people drink. But I wasn't really sure. But he was so detailed. I mean, he went through every step of the way got all the correct licensing and, you know, did it. And that product is now so successful. I was able to buy that bottle in my local ABC store in Pittsburgh. And they can, you know, barely meet the demand, but you can't drink it. You can just look at it. You are in the library. But you're welcome. Maybe out in the parking lot later. So I will go back, and I'm happy to sign as many books as you want. I suggest they make a fabulous Christmas present. The book I do want to make one pitch, which is it's easy to read. There isn't much written in the local food movement that you can hand to somebody that you want to get kind of excited about local food. The stories like Tucker's are personal. The Lender stories are personal. And I say, and I think it's safe in this crowd, I say it's kind of like a Reader's Digest. You can just, said that to someone one time, and she looked at me and said, what's the Reader's Digest? Anyway, but you can open it up. And I sometimes do that at book readings. I just open it up, and whatever I open it to is what I read. Because it's kind of fun just for me too. But it is written so that you can pick it up and read a story, put it down, pick it up, read a story, put it down. In case you are like me and it's a challenge to get through books cover to cover. So before I fall asleep. Well, thank you again so much for coming, and please enjoy the nibbles. Thank you for having me.
I have one quick little announcement. I just realized I should probably tell this group. In April, we're going to be rolling out Durham Grows Seed Library at this library, at the South Library, and the Southwest Library. We're doing this with Fear and Trembling. We're going to try to develop sort of on the farmers market local, we're going to not initially have local seeds. We're going to have, people are giving us seeds. We would love to collect stories. If you have a grandmother or an uncle that has some bean seeds that they've been keeping. And our idea is we will have seed saving workshops. We're working with seeds and master gardeners and some other folks. We're trying to find some old card catalogs because that's where we want to put the seeds. We think that'd be really cute, but believe it or not, they're hard to find now. And the idea is you'll take a pack home and grow it, and then you'll bring us back too, we hope, but you don't have to. But anyway, look for that. We think we're going to call it Durham Grows Seeds Library. We'll be the first one in North Carolina, and I think this will fit really well with our local food movement. And believe it or not, that's what libraries did in the 20s. They used to, for years and years, they did have, the local library did have a seed library there too. And my volunteer Sandy back there's waiving the evaluation form. Please fill it out so we know what kind of programs you like. And now let's go and
Please do give me something
and sign.
with your name and email on it.
I have a list there for you.
Yeah, on the book signing, go back and buy the book and sign and have refreshments. Thank you, Frank.
We can stay in touch with you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.